Hey, welcome back to my studio. I've got this 12 by 16 inch painting that I started out on the Columbia River near Entiat, Washington. This was on a road trip out to Lake Chelan. Beautiful day, but bitterly cold. I would have been fine except the wind was picking up, and that wind with sub-zero temperatures was just too much. That and some clouds were moving in behind me, so I was losing that brilliant light that I was trying to capture. So what I did is I finished the turpentine wash to a point that I liked. I got the main composition down and the big shapes mapped in, and then I mixed the colors matching the light scheme that I liked. As the sun went behind clouds, I would do something in the foreground that wasn't quite so affected by the cloudy atmosphere, but when the light hit that background hillside, I would mix those colors, trying to get that color harmony. This shadow pattern, I like the way it was when I first got there, so that's what I tried to capture in the turpentine wash. I've mentioned it before in my videos, but the turpentine wash is a great place to play with the composition. I'm using it more and more as a no-tan, trying to connect the dark shapes and trying to simplify and unify the dark shapes wherever I can. So I've got kind of a big middle tone mass in the water, and then a nice line of darks running here along this lower 1/3 line, and then this dark shadow going up the mountain and then following the ridge line down, and then also coming back down to this little pool of shadow. So I want to try to maintain that. I want the colors to get more vibrant as they come forward, so I may bump those up a little bit as I go. I may also dim down the colors in the background using the sky colors that I mixed to make sure they recede into the distance. I want to get that feeling of perspective. I've got the colors that I mixed while I was there laid out. I've got my normal colors also on my palette. So while I was on location, I just had titanium white. Here in the studio, I always add a little bit of lead white. I like lead white because it's more translucent. It's a little gentler than titanium white, and it adds something strange and unique to the viscosity. When you're pushing it around on the panel with your brush, it just feels different than titanium white. It's hard to master, but it sure is fun. I've got cold gray, ivory black, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cad red, cad yellow, Windsor lemon, Gamblin radiant lemon, yellow ochre. So the other day when I was out on the river starting the plein air mixing these colors, I didn't have cobalt blue or phthalo blue or radiant lemon out. So I'll try to avoid using those to maintain the harmony I have in these colors that I mixed. For my mixed colors, I've got a blue, very high value cerulean blue for the sky, a little more pink, a little lighter value version of that for the clouds. I'm going to have some clouds rolling in to make the sky a little more interesting. Then I've got the distant snow and shadow and the distant snow and the sun, yellow and a pink. I've got a background rock where it's more blue and shadow, and a background rock, this is up on the mountain, where it's coming closer to the sunlit side. It gets a little warmer, so a little, maybe just a slight bit darker. If that looks too dark, I can always add a little bit of this, or I can add some of these to lighten that. I'll also use this for the little bit of pine trees along the ridge that are on the mountain. Then I've got some rock in the sun, a little cooler, a little warmer, and then a highlight color where the sun is really hitting the rock directly. Then we've got some foreground colors, pine trees, shadow, cool and warm. Deciduous tree shadow, a little darker, a little lighter and warmer. Pine trees in the sun, a little cooler, a little warmer, and a little lighter as well, more yellow. Then deciduous trees as they turn into the sun, really warm. This is one thing that was drawing me to the scene, where those warm, leafless deciduous trees, the bark is really warm red against that distant blue. It was really pretty, also against the blue of the water. Got some more colors for the deciduous scrub brush, just some different shades that I picked up. Then some blues for the water. I'll also use the sky color and this mountain color to create an abstract pattern in the water, but I want to maintain that big shape, all close to one value. I may need to mix a few more colors up on the fly if I'm not seeing them exactly. I've got a little bit of Gamsol and walnut oil here in this jar just to wet my brush if I need to. I'll start with a number 7 Rosemary Evergreen. Make sure it's nice and clean and paint the sky. Start with this warmer pink. It's kind of a bluish pink, almost a lavender. And try that. Yeah, that's about the right value. I may lighten that just a bit with some of this yellow snow color. As usual, I'll paint down over the edge of the mountain shape. As I go, correct the drawing. If you'd like to see an extended version of this video, almost real time, check out my Patreon page. Link is in the description below. I'm going to add just a touch of ultramarine at the top of the sky, just for variety and to capture how dark it gets as it goes up, how much richer the blue gets as it goes toward the zenith of the sky. Just want something, I don't need a detailed cloud mask, just something simple, suggesting those high wispy clouds that were rolling in. I don't want to overblend the sky, but I don't want any ridges of paint either. Since most paintings are lit from the top down, if there are big ridges in the sky, it can catch that light and make the sky look like it has a texture, which I don't care for. Alright, that's good for the sky. I'm going to take a little smaller Evergreen flat. It's a number 4. Make sure it's clean. And map in the high value lightest snow. I'm not really going to follow the reference photo here. I'm going to follow the wash I put in. So you can see that this is the highest value. I don't want a high value patch right over here so close to the edge, so I'm going to go a little darker on that one. I've noticed that a lot of the mountain painters that I really admire almost seem to leave an outline along the ridges. So I'm going to try to preserve some of that wash outline if I can in the final painting. See if I like the effect. Now, I don't like that crack in the top of the mountain there, so I'm going to kind of erase that and roll it over. I don't want to use this highest value everywhere, just along the top where I had suggested it before during the wash. I'm going to add just a touch more yellow. Where my wash has more yellow. Okay, that's good, I think, for the highest value snow. Now we'll go into the next pinker shade of high value snow. Now that seems too dirty to me, so I'm not sure if I didn't do a good job mixing it. But I want to mix up a little cleaner pile of this pink snow. A little bit of titanium white, a little bit of lead white, some Neoma Gilp, and just a touch of alizarin crimson should do it. Nice clean pink. See how strong that alizarin is. That's too dark, too pink, so add more white. My cats are my studio buddies and they are telling me it's lunchtime, so sorry if you hear some meowing. Yeah, that's better. I'm wondering now if I didn't mix up this pink. I think that is a highlight on the rock, not the pink for the snow. Okay, I mixed up a little bit of very high value pink to be the snow in the sun as it shifts toward the shadow. This is just a little duller, touch of blue, a little more alizarin crimson, a little pinker to shift it even more. I came up with this mix as I was getting to this one, so I just set it aside to save it. I think that what I thought was the pink is actually the highlight on the rock, so I moved it over here with the rock colors. So I'll take this number 4 Rosemary Evergreen, long flat, and continue to paint the high value. I'll continue to paint the areas of the snow getting hit by almost direct sunlight. As it shifts away from the sun, it turns just a little pink. Trying to paint thin. I don't want a lot of thick paint in this background. And I'm also trying to change the direction of my brush strokes, the angle of my brush, to kind of mimic what I'm seeing from the wash and from my reference photo. So, for instance, this is moving from this high value yellow, a little more pink, and into shadow. The slope is falling. The fall line is coming this way. So if I can get away with it with one big stroke, if I can leave that, it'll be interesting. If I have to correct it, I can. I can wipe out some of those thicker edges. I can paint into that. But what I'm trying to do is be efficient with my brush work. If I could paint the whole painting with just one layer of beautiful brushwork, I'd be very happy. But that's extremely difficult. But the paintings I like look like they were done all in one go with beautiful, untouched, unrevised brushwork. A lot of painters will work from dark to light. So the normal process would be to put that initial underpainting, that initial stain in, and then paint the darks, the shadows first. Sargent tended, from what I can tell from writings about Sargent's method, he tended to put the middle tones in. He'd do an initial real light turpentine wash, and then he'd put the middle tones in, and then he'd paint darker from there and lighter from there. And I've tried that. That works nicely as well. But the method I like best is to do the stain and then paint my highest values, my lightest lights next, and then paint into those either with my shadows or with my middle tones. I think that comes from all my years of watercolor painting. So it's in me, it's in my nature to try to preserve the lightest lights. When you're painting watercolor, the light is normally the light of the paper, so you have to preserve it. Otherwise, you can go back in with a white gouache and recover the whites, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look as nice as if you were just able to leave the white of the paper exposed. It has a transparency and a translucence that really glows. And again, it's that efficiency and mastery where every stroke counts, and it looks like every stroke was put down once and left alone. Okay, now I'll go into this next darker, more pink. See how that looks on there. It may be a little too strong. I think it looks okay. Now I add just a touch of this sky blue into this lavender to add some cool. It's really interesting where you have shifts of warm and cool within the same value. This is also where the snow is turning into the shade, but not completely in shade. It's really subtle, but your mind picks up on that subtlety. Really can create a lot of depth if you are able to pull it off. And my reference photo does not have a lot of this subtlety. I'm more responding to what I'm seeing as I paint, and also following the wash. Just a touch of ultramarine as well. Shift it just a little bluer. I don't want to obliterate my shadow pattern though, so I have to be careful. Add just a touch of alizarin. Shift it slightly warmer, but keeping it nice and clean. So far in this mix, all I have are white, a bit of this yellow, which is the Windsor lemon, and ultramarine blue. So it's a very, very clean color mixed from only 3 colors plus white. Using the same brush, without really cleaning it, just wiping it off on a paper towel, I'm going to go into this next darker color. This is the snow in the shade. I'm going to put it on there and see how it looks. if it looks clean enough. Maybe a little dark, so I can add just a touch of the sky blue. Cleaner blue as well. I know I'm going to have some of these red trees down here. They'll look really nice against the blue shadow. So some of these shadows I want to be a very clean, slightly higher value. So I'm dipping into the snow pink and the sky blue to raise the value and to raise the purity of the color. Because in this mix I added just a bit of brown and cold gray. But I don't want to go too light. I want those to stay in the shadow. That same brush, I'm going to paint this next darkest shadow on snow. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's really surprising how helpful it is to mix your colors on site rather than based on the photo. Just looking at the photo reference, I don't think I would have come up with this subtle, dirty purple, but it really works in that shadow. So now I'll move into the cool rock and shadow. Just like with drawing, when you're drawing values of an object, as the form shadow moves toward the mid-tone plane, it can get darker right along that interface line. So if you do that in your painting, it can create some interesting effects. If you put your darkest shadow right next to the interface of the mid-tone and the form shadow, you can add a lot of interest and add a lot of three-dimensionality. That seems a little green. It looks purple on my palette, but it looks a little green on the panel, so I'm going to add more blue, keep the value the same, but make it bluer by adding ultramarine blue. I don't want to obliterate all the snow I put in, so again I'm just following my wash. Still seems like it needs to be cooler. Add a little bit of cerulean as well. Okay, now try this warmer rock color. Very dark. Seems a little too dark, so I'm going to add some of this to it. Clean number 4 Rosemary Evergreen and start to paint the sun on the rock now. This darker rock color is also standing in for the pines on the hill. I may have to go back in later and carve a little of that back out. It got a little bit heavy and kludgy, but I'll leave it for now. So I'll start with the lightest value rock color. Just work slowly darker, just like I did with the snow, adding the darker rock in sun colors. If they feel too dark, I can add more of the lighter shades, tip it blue or tip it warmer. The rock on the mountain and paint the bank of the river. Warm it up just a little bit. I think it should be just a little warmer than the background mountain. The same large evergreen that I used to paint the sky and paint the water. Start with this highest value sky color again. Finally, I'll take this number 4 Rosemary Master Series natural hair brush and paint the trees in on this little spit of land. I'm using this soft natural hair brush because I'll be painting over some layers of paint that are already down and wet. If I use a stiff brush like an evergreen or a bristle, it'll pick up that layer. But if I use this nice soft brush, I should be able to lay it down right over those mountain colors and over the water without picking it up. Here's where it ended up. I added more warmth to this rock face to bring it forward. I think that works. I deepened the shadow a little bit more to get some separation of this face from the receding faces. And then I kept the middle ground really pretty abstract Also the plane of water, flat and loose. I'm pretty happy with it. That's a fun way to do a painting, to take the color notes on location and then come and finish it in the comfort of the studio. It can take more time. I didn't refer to the reference photo a whole lot, a little bit for some of the nooks and crannies of this rock face. I'll put it out on my website if you'd like to take a closer look. As always, thanks so much for joining me. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.